This is one function, 5,952 lines. It's the turn agent of Hermes Agent. Every single conversation it has runs through this one block of code. Same job in OpenClaw, 190 lines. So OpenClaw wins, obviously, except the project that wins on code quality is the project people can't keep running, and the project that loses on code quality is the one people say they forget is even there. Both of those are true at the same time. There's one reason why, and it isn't the one you'd guess. And as of yesterday, the one thing everybody points to as the difference between these two quietly closed. So I had Claude read both code bases end to end, 93,000 commits, every claim cited to a file and a line number. And then I checked that against what 4 security firms found and what 1,300 users actually said. 3 bodies of evidence, and they disagree with each other. By the end of this, you'll have a checklist that tells you which one to run, and you'll know exactly which failure you're signing up for either way. Let's get into it. Quick on the method, because it decides how much you should trust the rest of this. Both projects were read at the same moment. Hermes at commit 9ACCF79, OpenClaw at 91DCA69, both on the 30th of July. Not the docs, not the marketing pages, the actual working code. And the scale is lopsided. Hermes is about 1,000 Python files and 799,000 lines. OpenClaw is 13,000 TypeScript files and about 2.9 million lines. Everything got counted mechanically. How big is the average file? How many tests? How many rules the project enforces on itself? Every claim tied to a file name and a line number that you can go open right now. Now here's what it did not do, and this matters. Neither test suite was run. Neither project was installed. Nobody attacked either security system to see if it holds. Nothing was measured for speed, memory, or cost. So every claim about the code is a claim about structure. I read the code that does this, not I watched it work. Structure is a good predictor of how expensive something it is to maintain. It is not proof of how something behaves. Hold on to that, because very shortly, Act 2 is going to attack it. And one more thing about the title, because it matters. The code analysis is Claude's. The next 2 sections mostly aren't. The security findings belong to a few security firms. The complaints belong to 1,300 real people. I had Claude go collect that work and check it against the source. It didn't produce it, and neither did I. Every one of those names goes on screen when we get there. An analysis that tells you its own limits is worth more than one that doesn't. Every comparison you've seen on this topic, including mine, is somebody's snapshot. Ask what they didn't check, and start with the part that isn't close. If you only look at the source code, this isn't a close fight. It's a blowout, and 3 things decide it. 1. Size. You already saw this one. Hermes has 51 files over 3,000 lines. OpenClaw has 0, and I want to be precise about that because it's exactly the kind of number people go and check. OpenClaw does have 21 files that big. Every single one of them is a translation table. Dictionaries, not logic. Handwritten code over 3,000 lines, genuinely 0. And Hermes' 51 contain no generated files at all. The biggest single file in Hermes is 25,000 lines. And here's the detail that tells you this isn't just a house style. In that same file with the 5,900 line function, the second longest function is 135 lines. So it's not that they write long code, it's that one function ate everything. 2. The rules the project enforces on itself. This is the widest gap, and it's the one that predicts the future. A lint rule is just an automatic check that blocks your code if you write it a certain way. A spell checker for engineering standards. Hermes enforces 1, and its own config file says Y out loud. The rest are switched off on purpose while they deal with something else. That's a project writing itself an IOU with no date on it. OpenClaw enforces 195. The same story with type checking. That's the automatic check that catches a whole category of mistakes before anything runs. Hermes runs it and then explicitly tells it not to fail. It reports the problems, nothing stops, and tests about 20,000 versus 106,000. 3. Whether you can change it. A complete working add-on for OpenClaw is 12 lines of code. Changing anything structural in Hermes means going into that 5,900 line function. Scored across 15 dimensions, according to Claude, Hermes 5.9, OpenClaw 8.5. And to be fair, OpenClaw isn't clean everywhere. It has 1,022 files sitting on an admitted debt list, and its test code is now bigger than the actual product. So if you're choosing on source code alone, it's over. It's not close, it's decisive, and every measurement points the same direction, which is exactly why the next section shouldn't be possible. If your business already has leads, clients, tasks, or follow-ups falling through the cracks, don't start by buying another AI tool. Start by mapping the bottleneck. I work with business owners to build AI systems around the highest leverage workflow first. If that's what you need, book a consulting call below. And if you're still in learning mode and want the templates, workflows, and breakdowns behind these videos, the school community is linked below as well. 1,300 comments got analyzed on this. I'm going to give you both lists back to back because the comparison is the entire point. OpenClaw first. The single most upvoted complaint, 305 votes, is that every update ships more problems than the last one. Another user put a number on it. Roughly a 25% chance that any given update breaks message delivery. Scheduled jobs stop firing, webhooks stop arriving, the thing quietly stops doing the work. And the texture around that is consistent. The background service drops its connection. Channels go offline. People describe a weekly ritual. Restart the container, run the repair command, clear out the stale config. One write-up nailed it. A tool that needs weekly maintenance rituals isn't saving you time, it's inventing a new category of work. Memory. One developer lost a month of context and training to 2 compaction wipes, and compaction is just the agent squashing its own history down when it gets too long. Instructions as basic as don't do anything until I tell you to vanished in the summary. The opposite failure shows up too. An agent that pulled in a 2-day-old research run plus some unrelated Slack drafts and confidently named the wrong company. Over proactivity. Meta's director of AI and safety alignment told OpenClaw to confirm with her before acting. It mass deleted hundreds of her emails anyway, while she scrambled to shut it down. Its WhatsApp integration has been reported replying to memes, to emoji reactions, and to messages clearly meant for other people. Cost. Unoptimized setups routinely run $300 to $500 a month. Now Hermes lists straight away, so you're holding them side by side. Its number one reported problem, when it grades its own work, it says it did great. Always. Actual user quote, it always thinks it did a good job. Always. Number 2, when it improves itself, it overwrites edits you made by hand. And in one reported case, it auto-committed unfinished code straight to production because the skill it wrote for itself left out the rules about branches. That list is shorter. Before you read anything into that, 2 things. 1, the praise is specific, which is usually a good sign. Setup described as dramatically more streamlined. I'm actually getting stuff done instead of debugging. It shows a live indicator for every tool it uses, so a non-engineer can watch what it's doing, where OpenClaw's window is mostly opaque about it. One person moved a Hermes instance to a completely different machine, and it pulled its config, memory, skills, and permissions across, restarted, and reconnected on its own. 2, and apply this to everything I just said. In that same group of 1,300 comments, 15% said they distrust Hermes because they think some of the praise is fake. astroturfed. I can't resolve that, but here's what it means practically. Discount Hermes' praise harder than you discount Hermes' complaints. And one more disclosure, because it's the first thing a hostile commenter would go find. A big chunk of what I just read you, the upvote counts, the 25% figure, the 15% split, comes from a single write-up by a company called Kilo. Kilo sells a competing agent product. Now that doesn't make the numbers wrong. The comments are public and you can go count them yourself, but you should know whose collation you're standing on. It's on screen and it's dated. So bank this one because it's the shape of the entire answer. Every complaint on the OpenClaw list is something you'd notice within a day. Almost every complaint on the Hermes list is something you'd only find by going and reading what it wrote. Loud versus quiet. Hold on to that. It's what everything else in this video resolves into. And there's a third body of evidence that neither of the first two predicts at all. These aren't forum posts. These are named security firms. Security Scorecard, February. 40,214 OpenClaw instances sitting exposed on the open internet, and about a third of them flagged vulnerable to remote code execution, which just means a stranger can run commands on your machine. Koi Security, same month. Of 2,857 community skills they audited, 341 were malicious. 335 of those were delivering the same macOS password stealer. Sneak. Of nearly 4,000 skills, 36.8% had at least one security flaw, 534 of them critical. Cisco found third-party skills quietly exfiltrating data, and in March, the Chinese government restricted state agencies and banks from using it. Now here's the part that flips your intuition, and it's the most useful idea in this whole video. None of that is a code failure. OpenClaw security engineering is genuinely better than Hermes, and it's not close either. Take one example. When you approve a command in OpenClaw, it works out what's actually about to run, the real program, the real arguments. Hermes makes that same decision by tidying up the text of the command and pattern matching against it. It sounds like a small difference, but it isn't. Text matching is a game where the defender has to imagine every possible disguise, and the attacker only needs to find the one nobody thought of. That's a whole stack of protections like that, and OpenClaw wins on nearly all of them. And they were almost entirely irrelevant to how people actually got compromised. Because compromise didn't come through the code, it came through the skill marketplace, where publishing required a markdown file and a GitHub account that was 1 week old. No code signing, no security review. And then this, config.ts, line 255. The sandbox, the box that keeps the agent from touching the rest of your computer, ships off. The safer setting is documented, it's recommended, but it's not switched on for you. And it's not the only one. Security Scorecard worked out why 40,000 machines ended up on the open internet in the first place, and it's the same species of problem. Out of the box, OpenClaw listened on every network interface on the machine instead of just the local one. Not a bug, a default. Hermes' position here is the mirror image. It has no third-party marketplace at all, so there's no marketplace to attack. Its approval mode defaults to asking you every time. It fails, safe. Its dependencies are pinned exactly with the reason written into the config file, a specific supply chain worm named and dated. Its weaknesses are real too. The text matching approval I mentioned, and it downloads a security scanning program from the internet at runtime and runs it, checked against a fingerprint, but still fetched and executed on the fly. So better security engineering lost to worse defaults and an open marketplace. Twice over, the sandbox off and the door open to the whole network, which means the thing that protects you isn't the architecture, it's the setting that ships switched on. And notice which way this one cuts. 40,000 exposed machines, and almost none of those owners had any idea they were one of them. That's the quiet kind. Before I show you what changed yesterday and why it makes every comparison of these two out of date, If you want more breakdowns that go at the actual source instead of the marketing, subscribe. It genuinely helps. Here's the thing everybody repeats about these two, and it's in basically every comparison you'll find. Hermes improves itself automatically. OpenClaw makes you approve every skill it writes. That was true. Let me show you the history of one file. 30th of May, the feature is added, approval set to pending. Same day, a commit whose message literally says, keep autonomous skill capture opt-in, so it's off. That's the claim everyone is repeating. 14th of July, approvals default to automatic. 29th of July, commit message, make self-learning automatic by default. That's one day before the snapshot. The differentiator is gone. OpenClaw now writes and approves its own skills out of the box, exactly like Hermes. And it isn't the only place they've converged. Both projects ship a curator, a background process that ages out skills you've stopped using. Hermes, stale after 30 days, archived after 90. OpenClaw, stale after 30 days, archived after 90. Built separately, months apart. Identical numbers. So here's my position, and I think it's the most useful prediction you can make about this space right now. OpenClaw is about to inherit Hermes' two worst problems. Not might. The mechanism is already installed and switched on. Hermes' number one complaint is a self-evaluator that always says it did great. Number two is self-improvement overriding your manual edits. Those aren't Hermes bugs. Nobody typed those in wrong. That is simply what happens when you let an agent write its own instructions automatically and then grade its own homework. OpenClaw just turned that on for everybody by default yesterday. Watch the complaint threads over the next few weeks and tell me I'm wrong. And to be fair to everyone who said the old thing, it was true when they said it. It held for about 7 weeks. That's just the shelf life of a claim about default settings in a project that has shipped 73,000 commits, which gives you a rule that outlives this video. Any comparison of these two that's more than a month old is describing software that you can consider no longer exists. Check the commit date, not the publish date, mine included. Which brings us back to what I promised at the start. 3 bodies of evidence that contradict each other. But they don't, actually. Here's why. The code says OpenClaw, the users say Hermes. Both are right, and they're right for the same reason. OpenClaw's engineering rules are written down in its own repository. 2 lines. Compatibility is opt-in, one canonical path, delete the old path. That policy is why the code is so clean. If you delete the old way every time you build a new way, nothing accumulates. No legacy branches, no dead code, no compatibility layers piling up inside the core. It is also exactly why your install breaks. 73,000 commits, a release every month, and a written policy of deleting the old path. A 25% chance that an update breaks delivery isn't a lapse in discipline. It's what that policy predicts. It's the policy working as designed. 195 rules and 106,000 tests keep the code correct. Nothing in there keeps your running system from being refactored out from under it. And here's the part that makes this genuinely uncomfortable. It's in the same file as those 2 rules 30 lines up. Their own doctrine says, silent failure is worse than a crash and worse than a missing feature. An action that produces nothing with nothing to explain why is the worst kind of bug there is. They wrote that down, and then the release policy in the same document produces exactly that at the deployment layer about a quarter of the time. And the same trick explains the other half. Hermes' 2 worst complaints aren't bugs either. Look at the safety rules its curator actually has. And they're good ones. It never deletes, it only archives. It only touches skills the agent wrote itself. Skills you've pinned are left alone. Every single one of those protects you from deletion. Not one of them does anything about a skill the agent wrote that is simply wrong, or a self-assessment that always reports success. That gap isn't in the implementation, it's in the design. You can't patch it. It's the price of the feature. So you're not choosing between a good project and a bad one. Both of these are serious pieces of engineering. You're choosing which failure you can absorb. OpenClaw fails loudly and often, in ways an operator notices the same day. Hermes fails quietly and rarely in ways you only find when you go read what it wrote. Which one is worse depends entirely on whether anyone is watching. So, the checklist. 2 questions. That's the checklist. Everything after them is a tiebreaker. Question 1. Would you ever install a community-made skill? If yes, Hermes. Not because its security engineering is better, because it isn't. I showed you that. Because 341 confirmed malicious skills is a thing that already happened, not a risk somebody theorized about. Hermes has no marketplace, so there's no marketplace to be attacked through. If you can genuinely guarantee you never will, OpenClaw, and all those better primitives finally get to count for something. Question 2. Will a human be watching it? If this thing has to keep working while nobody's looking, a family member's assistant, something running inside a business, Hermes. Someone who can't debug a drop connection can't own a weekly restart ritual, and a silent delivery failure is the worst possible outcome for the person who won't notice for 3 days. If you'll be there daily and you'd spot it the same afternoon, OpenClaw. That's the decision. 2 questions, they genuinely branch, and between them they cover almost everybody watching this. 3 tiebreakers if you're still split. Extending it heavily, OpenClaw. 12-line add-ons against editing a 6,000-line function. Doing actual AI research, Hermes, uncontested. It has the training and benchmark tooling, and OpenClaw has nothing comparable. Your team's language, Hermes is Python with no build step, and that counts for more than people admit. And if you land on OpenClaw for anything that matters, 3 conditions, not suggestions. Pin your version and never track the latest. That release policy makes it mandatory. Turn off third-party skill installation completely. That's the entire attack story. And switch the sandbox on because it ships off. And check what it's listening on. And since the title says, according to Claude, here's the pick in full, including the caveat attached to it. It said it will build on OpenClaw, and in the same breath said that reflects its own position because it would pin versions, disable the marketplace, and enable the sandbox. And that for a default user who won't do those 3 things, the evidence points to Hermes. I'm not going to pick for you, and I want to be straight up about why. The honest answer genuinely flips on question 1, and I don't know your answer to it. But there is an answer, it's just yours to give. One more line the whole thing rests on, from a reviewer who used both. Prompt injection isn't solved by anyone yet. Nobody's fixed it, not either of these. Every one of those answers is a choice about which risk you're taking, not a way to avoid taking one. Last thing, and it's for a specific group of you. Most people watching this are choosing for themselves. If you run a business, you're not. You're choosing for a system that nobody is watching. And that changes the weighting completely. Look back at those 15 dimensions it scored. Every single one is about code. File sizes, type safety, test counts. Not one of them measures the thing that actually costs you money. An agent that stopped delivering on Tuesday and nobody found out until Friday. Which is this whole video in 4 words. Loud versus quiet. When you're the one watching, loud is just annoying and quiet is fine. When nobody's watching, loud is survivable, and quiet is the one that costs you a client. So for an operator, the real question was never which agent. It's what breaks silently, who finds out, and how fast. Answer those 3, and the tool choice mostly answers itself. For what it's worth, I run Hermes. Not because it won this, it didn't, and the code section wasn't close. Because I answered yes to question 1. If you want to see the exact setup I run and how I lock the permissions down, that video's next.